Good afternoon, folks. We're running a bit late, couple of minutes, but we are here. So, with that in mind, let's get started, shall we? We are working on, we made up some textures last night after the stream. So we've got 10 different textures that can go on the walls. The plan today is to basically make a level and check it for the distance you have to cover and how long it takes you to cover that distance. Okay, but we're just going to do a quick check on our textures to see what we have. Okay. We also added a bit of procedural stuff last night to those particular signs, and now what happens is they are put at a random angle so that they don't all look to be aligned in the same way, right? So we should be able to see that as we go through the level. And if we, there was one there somewhere. We may actually need to change the, there's one there. Actually, there's a bit of a break in something not quite right there. If you see that, something not quite right. Right, so I'm going to stop that for now. And that is in map number 2. So we're going to have to figure this one out and find out what the problem is. Right. This looks like it here. Is that it? I think so. Well, I think that's that issue sorted, so that's okay. Right. So our point here is we've made a fourth level. Okay. Now, I don't know if we finish the fourth level what it's actually going to do for us. Soon find out, I suppose. Okay. Right. So, the first issue here is we're going to delete everything. Well, that's not strictly true, or not, actually. What we'll do is we shall make a square, and then we'll gradually make it bigger and bigger, and then we'll see how long it takes to actually go around that square. Okay, so these are all going to have to go. Not necessarily that though. We can kind of keep the straights in place. This is to begin to get an idea of the sizes involved and the speed we can travel at, to give us then an idea of the sort of times that we need to consider for completing a level, right? That's kind of the point here. And would have probably been better starting off with a completely empty level for this, but hey ho. Live and learn, I suppose. If there's anybody in the chat, let me know. Let me see who's here today, if it's a regular or if it's some new folks in the chat. Oh, it shouldn't take too long to get this finished off. Yeah, we're just about done. Right, so all we really need here is a T-junction and a turn basically. And then we can copy and paste the rest in. Hi Ayush Wahadi, how are you doing, bud? How are you today? We don't actually need any more T-junctions, all we need is turns now. So once we've joined these up, right, so there, right. So all we need now is to bring in a turn. Pop that down to 0. Spin it round. Drop it into place. Just making sure it was in line there. Oh, 2 weeks. So you're pretty new. You've got a whole adventure ahead of you. So what is it you've started working on in Unreal Engine? Is it game stuff you're working on, or are you interested in something else? Scenery design, there's engineering purposes for using it. Right, so we need our turn again. So we can just duplicate that. Bring it over here, spin it round. Hi Thomas, you're from India. Yeah, there's quite a lot of people I get from India. You're not the first, I can tell you that. But you're welcome. Everybody's welcome, doesn't matter where you're from. But as I said, I get quite a few viewers from India. Unreal Engine seems to be popular in India. Right, so the purpose of this is that we just want to find out what sort of sizes we're talking about when we're doing like a simple square and how long it takes us to actually navigate that square, right? That is purely the purpose of this prototype level, right? We will need to incorporate it into the game so that we can actually run it, I think. Although we might be able to just run it straight from here. We certainly can't run it from the menus or stuff because we haven't incorporated it yet, but we can do that. when we're sort of happy with the setup. Right, all we need is one more of them, but my problem is I don't know, I'm not 100% sure yet if it's going to work on the end level, because I don't have an entry for it in the data table yet, I don't think. But we'll check in a minute. If not, game development, well, it's pretty good for that. That's kind of what it was designed for in the first place, so right, so I'm going to have to delete these, right, because these are going to bring up extra pickups that I don't require, and it's easier just to get rid of them. Right, so point being, we're going to save the level. ¿Qué es eso? ¿Tú tienes?
Atún con elote.
Oh, okay. Right, so we're going to test this. And I've got this completely wrong. Right, because this T-junction isn't the right way around. It should be like so. Right, so we'll save that. What are you up to today, Thomas? Right, so we're not bothered about this level per se. Oh, I just went back, you idiot. Right, okay, stop that, start that again. Right, I'm not even very good at my own game. Okay. "44 seconds. Okay. So that was 44 seconds with absolutely zero obstacles, zero traps, zero anything really. But it does give us a general idea. Oh, it's better than that. That's just, there's nothing in this, right? I'll let you see it, since there's just a couple of you guys. Pretty sure Thomas has seen this before. I recognise Thomas's name. Right, so screen here, high scores, which we've not completed any yet, so that's alright. Credits, blah blah blah. Options, display, visuals, keybinds, blah 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 blah. Gameplay settings. And you can play a game. You come in here, and this is where you pick levels. So the only one available, actually two of them are available to me, but I haven't cleared the high score recently. So this is another test level, but this was testing for traps and stuff. Right, so these are like metal balls of death with like basically stuff that can chainsaws on the end. Right, so you have to try and avoid these. Oh. Oh, one got me. Whoops, I died there. We have this one in the corner. One star, lives left 2. 55.8 seconds. Well, yeah, that's another test level. What I need to do, actually, we'll do this while we're at it. Right, we need to go into our pawn. So first person blueprints, pawn. Actually, that's a movement graph anyway, event graph. Right, so basically what we need to do here is we need to go into here, then into our blueprints, right, and we know that doors should be hidden, right, but we need to check out. Okay, so it's not that one. Is it this one? No, it's not that one either. Now, what is a thing that's definitely in the minimap? Right, a thing that's definitely in the minimap is a part of the map. Right, so we need to look in the maps, go to here, then these are not in the map, the minimap. Right, so these are set to this. Okay, so I need to copy that and then I need to go to the chandelier. Okay, where are we? Blueprints, lighting, and then in here we add this element to here, and then it should not show up in the minimap anymore. Right, so press play. Right, there's a minimap, and the chandeliers are no longer in the minimap. Okay, so that's what we wanted. I just got hammered there. Right, I did that in 35 seconds that time, right, but the point is that we're not testing this level, but yeah, we have monsters and stuff like that, but that level there, the one that the monsters are in is a big huge level, and it takes about 10 minutes to actually do it, I think. Right, but we're trying to work out how fast you can move so that I can then start like putting a first level together that is absolutely appropriate, rather than just doing levels and then guessing how big it is. Right, so we want the first level to be about, well, let's say about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes maybe tops. Right, so basically what we can do is we can gradually make this bigger and gradually this is probably a terrible way to do this, but hey ho, gets it done. Right, so the last time it was what, 55 seconds? Right, we did that in 42 seconds. Okay, so basically I've kind of got my idea for the first level. It's going to be fairly straightforward, of course. What is this? What is the thing there with it absolutely huge? Right, there's something here with absolutely huge. Right, now it can't be that. Right, okay. Right, we've got a problem here. Okay? We've got something here with an absolutely huge light radius. And I don't know what it is. Or it's an absolutely huge collision box. Or there's something that is an absolutely ridiculous. Now, it doesn't seem to be... Right, these are static mesh components, so that's not it. Okay. So, this is the lighting. I have to bring this back into view. Right, now there we have that, and that's tiny, so it ain't that, so it ain't the lighting, right? So I'm pretty much guessing it ain't that either. It ain't going to be one of them. I can't see it being... I can't see it being this. Because that hasn't even got a collision on it. Wait a minute, if I have that selected, right? Is it going to show me here? I'm guessing not. Okay. Right, so what is it that's causing this huge collision sphere? That's the question. Right, so it's not that either. Right, it ain't gonna be that. Is it the carpet? I can't see it being the carpet either. Could be though. Unlikely. Nope. Ain't that. Interesting. I'm beginning... No, but it can't be. I was beginning to think there that it was the sound attenuation, but it can't be that either. It can't be that. Okay, right. So to investigate this further, what we actually need to do here is, if we minimize that, right, we duplicate this. Okay. And then what we do is we gradually make all of these not visible. And then when we hit the right one, in theory, we should no longer see it. Having said that, yeah, it's working. But the question is it going to actually take away the collisions and stuff? It looks like it won't. Because it's not taking any of the collisions away, so I think this is a bit of a red herring. So we're going to try something else. And we can't actually delete that. Okay, whatever. So what we'll do is we'll delete that entirely. Right. We shall bring this back up. I'm going to move this over to my other screen for a second because it's going to be easier to do it and quicker. But what I'm going to do is gradually bring every single item in, right? So, and see which one creates this huge collision mesh or a lighting mesh or lighting indicator, let's say, right? So if I bring that, so it is the decal. It's the decal. Okay. Well, that was easy to figure out. So I am guessing that I'm going to bring this over so that you guys can see this again. I'm kind of guessing that that indicator is the attenuation. I'm not 100% sure on that though. Right, so if we open this up, I'm guessing it's something to do with the audio. Yeah, it is. Because it's not the box, it's the audio. Okay, fine. Footsteps. We're going to change this to fireplace. Yeah, that's brought it right down. So Okay, so that makes sense. What that's telling me is that is the attenuation, right? So that is actually quite a handy thing to know. So we'll save that, and we shall refresh all nodes. And then we shall compile it. Okay. And now you'll notice that, well, it's still pretty darn big. But it's not quite so big. Anyway, we've done that in what, 43 seconds? Okay, so with that in mind, we can add we can duplicate that. We can drag that to there. Then this is going to give us the correct position. Right, and all we need to do is drag this to here. Make sure it's in line, which it is. Right. Then we can move this to here, duplicate it, move it to here. Now the thing is that we can duplicate that, and duplicate that, and get it on the right one again. Right, now my fingers are cold, so I'm clicking on the mouse button a couple of times when I only need to do it once. Right, but the point being here that these have somehow ended up spun around. That's okay. We're not worried too much about that. The point here is I'm trying to work out the number of pieces that it's going to take me and the distance it's going to take us to cover that, right? So I'm going to say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 14, 15, 16, 17, multiply it by 2, 35, 36, 37. Right? 37. So if 37, we'll round it to 40, right? For every minute gameplay, we need to add 40 pieces of layout or dungeon or level or whatever you want to call it, right? So if I want, so what we're saying is, if we have a pickup on every single one of these, right, then 40 pickups equates to 60 seconds. Okay, so as I'm building up a level, hi Creamy Ghost, how are you? So if I build a level with 400 pickups, then I should be able to do the level in 10 minutes. That is without any delays or anything else. That's just an average figure I'm going with here. So if I want the first level to be 3 minutes, right, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make sure that it's 3 times this size, or approximately 120 pickups, okay, which equates to 120 of these units of my layout units, okay? How are you today, Creamy Ghost? I hope you're well. So if I wanted to really simplify this as like a level, right, to just do like a first level to introduce the player, right, what I could do is basically grab all these parts, now I should have thought this out a little bit more, but I'm going to give you my idea anyway. But in theory, if I duplicate that, right, and then move it, right, let's say here, right, we'd probably have to select all of this stuff and then move it over to that side a bit. But the idea would be that I do that, I rotate it by 90 degrees. This is just me spitballing ideas here, by the way. Right, so then I do that. In fact, I don't really actually need to move this here. Right, so the idea here would just be to create this, right, then duplicate it again, and I moved it twice there by mistake. Now, it'd actually probably be easier for me to do this manually and just create these anyway. Right, but say if I wanted to make a simple first level, right? Here's my point. My point is, I know that this is going to be about 3 minutes for the player to clear it, okay? Hi, Mr. Spock, how you doing? Right, so basically this takes about a minute to clear. This takes about a minute, and this takes about a minute. So all I'd actually need to do is connect this, and connect this, and I would have basically a simplified first level, right? And then what I could do is I could throw in one monster or something, and that would get the job done. Okay. So what we should really do is do that. Now the point is that it doesn't need to be this shape, right? All I need to do is actually move things around so I can make this more of a square. And then I could actually, if I wanted to, right, if I made this more of a square, let's say, I could make it longer this way and shorter this way. And then I could have these two parts here joining on here or on the sides, or I can still have them up here and then have them joined here, then maybe joined here and joined here. Now this wouldn't be my idea of a first level anyway, because basically I don't like long straights. Three or four long straights is about the maximum that I usually do, because I don't want the player to be able to see too far. Right, and on that point, I'm going to have a quick 2-minute cigarette break. I'm going to be right back. If you're enjoying the stream, hit like, subscribe, check out the description for Discord, Patreon, and my previous game, which is available on Steam. I'll be right back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Okay guys, we're back, but I didn't change the screen. Right, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. And I'm actually just going to build this manually. Right, so what we're going to do is go straight and select all of these, and that was a bad idea. And maybe that was the other way round. $47. Do that. Yeah, it's not right. Okay, whatever. Well, that's weird. Right, that's definitely weird. Right, these aren't any particular order or numbers. Right, we'll go for 32, right? Okay. So we'll go for 40 to 47. Okay. So the question is, what was the final Australia France score? Gonna have to check. Ah, 4-1. That went to form. Right. So, point here is we're going to make this a little bit different. Right? We're going to turn that around. We're going to put a turn here. We're going to move it, sorry. We're not going to do that. We're going to do that. Okay. Then we're going to do that. We're going to move this one. Yes, I will move, yeah. Once the... That is the right thing. Or is it? No, that's a straight. Yes, I'll definitely move, right? That's not really up for debate. The thing is, once there is actually a stable level, a stable version 5, then yeah, got nothing against moving. The problem is that it's not stable yet, right? And while it's not stable, then there's really all you're doing, and there's nothing wrong with doing it if you want to do it, right? But all you're basically doing is bug testing it for them, right? Now, as I said before, there ain't nothing wrong with doing that if that's what you want to do. But if you're in the middle of making an actual game, then it doesn't help when there's the software you're using has got bugs in it, and if you see, the problem is, right, it's not even the fact that, well, see, now there's the ridiculousness of it, right? If 5.2 is out, right, how could 5.1 ever have been stable in the first place, right? Because literally they brought out version 5.2 within a week of 5.1. So it just shows how unstable it is. Right, once again, if you want to test it, fine, go ahead. But the point being, the point still stands, right? At the end of the day, 5.1, if you're being honest about it, everybody knows that it's not stable, right? Or anybody that's done any kind of work on it knows for a fact that it's still got problems. Right now, that's fine, but it's not fine if you're trying to make an actual production game, because you just don't need the additional headaches, right? It's really just personal preference. If you want to go for it, go for it. If you don't, you know? But really the point still stands. And I get kind of, we basically had this one yesterday, right? Where we had a guy coming in basically saying, why are you not using 5.1? You know, here we go again. And then he was basically bitching about it. You know, like saying things like, oh, I want to see your outdoor environment. I'm like, my game's not outdoor, mate. Oh, what bugs have you came across? Well, I just laid them out and said them to him. You know, it's like, what are you being so precious about this for? You know, if you're happy using it, great. Leave me alone. As I say, I don't think he subscribed. But then again, who cares? You know, the funny thing about it is, or at least the funny thing I think about it is, if I was to ask him what version of Windows he's using, right? I'll bet he's using Windows, he's not using the latest version of Windows. Right? And then you'll of course ask him why he's not using the latest version of Windows, and he'll have the exact same answer that I've got for Unreal Engine. You know, it's not ready yet. You know, it's got too many bugs. Blah, blah, blah. So, as I said, I don't see why anybody would be so precious about a bit of bloody software. At the end of the day, it's just a tool. Or another good way to shut people up, by the way, is just ask them for a link to their game on Steam. That normally shuts people up really fast. Right, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stick a door in here. and this will be the first link to the second part. Oh yeah, the other one is to ask them how many games, how many like published games are available that have been done in Unreal Engine 5. I put a T-junction in there. I wasn't going to put a T-junction in there. I was going to put a door. Yeah, and the answer to that question, by the way, is 1, which is Fortnite, which is done by Epic, who own the frickin' engine, obviously. So we're going to have a 0. So, in answer to your question, Thomas, it's probably going to be around 5.3, I would say. But it's all going to depend on, you know, what people are saying. You know, if it's ready yet, or if it's not, or what's the story. But yeah, I'm not going to get hung up about it. Is that a turn? No, see, your argument's wrong, right? What you should never do is say like something that is going to basically paint you into a corner, right? Always give yourself an out. So that's why I say, and it is the case anyway, it's the truth, is I'm not going to use it yet, but I will use it, right? Because if you say things like, oh, it's no good for anything other than simulations or demonstrations or whatever, then you're painting yourself into a corner. And we know that that is going to change, right? Because it will get better, it will get more stable, and we will start using it. So, yeah. And the thing is as well, that this happens every single version, right? This happened with 4.6, 4.5, 4.7. It's the same thing, you know? You've got a new breed, you've got a new generation of people starting with Unreal Engine, right? And a lot of it's because all of the brouhaha about version 5. Right? And then these people are just beginning to come onto YouTube watching like streams like this, and the only thing they know is 4.5, so they're like, why are you using version 4? But yeah. It'll come, don't worry. No need to be in a rush. Oh, apparently the hot girls are here. Yeah, I get bots every day. Everybody does. Right, so we can grab this, drag this in here. I take it as a good sign. It means at least somebody's noticing your streaming, even if it's a bot. Paint a positive. Well, if you thought that was going to be the case, Mr. Spock, then you would warn me of the same thing. Because if you do anything creative on YouTube, then the argument stands. Somebody's going to steal your idea. Yeah, you can't. Well, you can, but it no longer becomes a static mesh. Right? A static mesh can only be scaled in every direction or moved in every direction. Right? It would have to be a procedural mesh, and you would have to move the vertices. And that's not your only problem, because then your texture would have to basically stretch, right? So there you go. Hope that makes sense. Right, because what you got to remember is all you're doing, right? Let me demonstrate what I mean. We'll go with old Cubester, okay? Right, so you've got Cubester, right? And Cubester, if it's an Unreal Engine, you can only scale it or move it as a whole, okay? right? So in terms of, and you have to do it, no you don't, right? So basically, if I wanted to scale this, right, I can scale it on X or Y. I can scale it this way, which is the same as in, same thing, right? But what you're actually trying to do here is change vertices. So let's say you're trying to move this, right, out to here, which I'm guessing is what you're trying to do, right? Or what you described. So what you'd have to do in the case of Blender, and you'd have to do the same thing, is you would only want to move these 4 vertices, right? Now your cube's obviously made up of those 4 vertices plus these 2 plus these 2, right? So in this case, we would move them, right? And that gives us, right, my mouse has just went and do lolly, right? But that's what you want to do, okay? But you've got to remember that when you bring in a mesh into Unreal Engine, it's a static mesh, okay? So you can only scale the whole thing, or move the whole thing, or move, you're basically moving every vertex depending on, well, you don't, right? You've got, if you're going to do that, there's 2, right, okay, right. I've got 2 ways to do it, right? And they would basically, they would both be, well, one would be right, one would be wrong. Both of them aren't going to probably work very well, right? But one you do is you can make a procedural mesh, okay, from points, okay? So you can draw a series of points and then join them up. So like, this is a point, this is a point, this is a point, this is a point, okay? And basically what you do is you draw them in triangles, right? So you draw this one, then you would draw this one, and then you would basically go over each side and draw it, okay? And if you're doing it as a procedural mesh in Unreal Engine, then what you can do is you're going to have like this series of vertices here, right? This one, and this one, right? And then you could move these 2, and this would still be a triangle, right? Hola Marcos Moreira, ¿cómo está? Right? So then you would move this, right? Well, you wouldn't move that one, right? But you'd move these ones, right? So when you were doing it in Unreal Engine, you'd have your vertices set up in your triangles, right? And then you'd work out which triangles and which vertices you needed to move, right? So in this case, you would move these ones, right? You move this one and this one, right? Now, there is another. Somebody asked me this the other night. I don't know who it was. It might have been Thomas. Did you ask me this in Discord? It wasn't you, Mr. Spock, but somebody asked me this very question. Yeah, it was you, Thomas. I answered your question. Right? Now, what you can do is, I can't remember how to do this off the top of my head, right? But what you can do is, if I create an actor, right? We'll just leave it at that. What you can actually do is add a procedural mesh, right? So if you type in a procedural mesh, okay, and then you can, in your code, you can basically set up the vertices and stuff. Like, I can't remember exactly how you do it. I done it in Fabrica Espace for the grid, right? It didn't do a cube, but it did a grid, right? But basically you can set up, I'm pretty sure, you add right, well, again, when you do a static mesh, you will texture the static mesh, right? So it'll automatically scale. Okay, now from what you just said there, I'm guessing that it's something to do with the landscape. Right? And again, I've done that, but there's a million videos on how to do, how to put meshes or textures onto landscape meshes, and then how to stop it from, how to adjust the size of the tiling and how to merge them or not have them replicate. And it's basically by using macro and micro variation. And that's the answer, right? But, so you can do this and you add vertices and you do all that stuff with a procedural mesh if you actually want to move individual vertices around, okay? But what I thought of, and this would be an interesting thing to try, well, it might not be that interesting, but we'll try it anyway. Right? But what I thought about was, if you wanted, I don't know if this will work, and it's obviously, this wouldn't work for a complicated object, right? But we'll try it anyway for a laugh. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to add a cube, right? But then what I'm going to do, and this is sneaky, right? But I like sneaky things, or let's say sneaky answers to the problem. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to parent cube 1 as the parent to cube 2, right? And I'm kind of guessing, yeah, that's not going to work. right? Because what I was kind of thinking was, if I then move cube 1, or let's say I scale it on X, right, where's the mouse went? Right. You'll notice that cube 1 here is still in the same position relative to cube 0. Okay? So in theory, let me just try this, right? This is interesting. Thomas, this is interesting. If I go, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I can certainly do it. Because what I could do is say cube 1, right? And I could set the scale I'm going to try the world scale first, right? As I said, we're going to muck about with this, right? But what I'm going to say is that this, if I grab cube 1, right, and I get the scale, right, get world scale, right, and I split this, and I split this, and then what I do is I say this divided by, and it's actually going to be this, right? And then I say that there and 1, okay? And then I put that in there, right? And then I put that in there. Now, this would take a lot of janking about with, but I'm just showing you something that I thought of that will do something like what you're talking about. So, if you remember, this is now at a scale of 3.79, right? Are you with me, Thomas? Now, obviously, this is not how you're going to do it, right? But if you had a very, very specific way use case for this, then I think this would work, right? Now, because this is basically parented to our main cube, its x is also multiplied by 3.79, right? Which is why they both end up the same size, okay? But if I divide the scale of this, right, by the scale of this, then this would go back to its original size, right? So basically a scale of 1, okay? So what I'm thinking here is, if I run simulation, this will go back to a square cube, whereas this will stay at 3.795. And it kinda did. But what I wanted was for this to stay here. Right? Now, what I think is this shouldn't be world scale. Right? This should be relative scale. Except I need to spell it right. Right? But these are the things, like, I was explaining this yesterday to somebody as well. Is that, it should be, yeah, that's okay. Getting myself confused there. Save that. Right? And then if we go to viewport and simulate, you see? Right? But our problem is, right? What we'd now need to do, and this is how I work out problems, by the way. I just muck about and have ideas and then add them together. So if we look at the simulation, right, we know that we need to move this cube to the end of this cube, right? So there's obviously a calculation there, right, that we can do to move this to here. Okay, so I think it's actually a relative position. Okay? So, if we go to our event graph, we can basically do kind of the same thing. Right? So we can say we can get the world location, we can split the pin, we can get the cube, and we can set world location, except this time let's see, this isn't going to work because we might, well, it could be set to 0, 0. In the simulation it might work, right, because it's going to be 0, 0 based, but you might need to do a little bit of like a starting position and stuff like that calculation on it, right? But again, we would modify the X by, now the problem is here that we're changing the scale again. So at this point, the world position, we'll try it. What the hell? Now, where the hell did it go? That's the question. Or is it actually correct? Okay, well, the easiest way to do this is go to cube 2, right? And then change this material to something else. Right? We'll just put any old thing on it, right? So we've got books, so we can see the difference between cube 1 and cube 2, right? So if I press simulation, you'll see that it's actually put it at 0, 0. Right? But it is the original size. So in effect, what we've done is we've stretched this, right? But we haven't stretched that. Now, as long as we can put that here, then we've actually simulated what you're talking about, right? And you could obviously do that at the other side as well. Right? So basically, there's a couple of ways you could do this. Because you could find out the bounding box size of this and get the top and the bottom and the right. Right? So you can actually check if I go, right, wait a minute. Yeah, we're here. Right, so in the original cube, right, what you can do is get a bounding box, get the local bounds, or get component bounds, local bounds, right, and it's going to be min max. Now, I'm not, this is a vector, okay? So that's okay. So yeah, you could do it this way. Right, you could just get the bounding box for the original cube. Right? And you could break this. Or split it, more to the point. I'll drag this out of the way for now. Make a mess of it again. Right, so I can split that, right? And then we know we're getting either min x or whatever. So all we actually need to do is say max x. And I think that'll work as simply as that, because we don't need any of the other values. Well, this will be a miracle if it works. Now, it's put it at 0, 0 again. So maybe I've got the wrong one. Or maybe we need to set this to the world location or something. Right, I'm going to add a breakpoint there though. And apparently it didn't break. Well, I'm guessing it doesn't break on right, but Thomas, these are the things you want to play with, right? min x, min y, I'm assuming this is min x and this is min y. Sorry, this is min x, right? We're on the x axis, okay? This is min, this is max. Now, I might have that the wrong way round, and it might actually be min x. We might be going right, left to right rather than right to left. But either way, it shouldn't have been at 0, 0. But you'll notice now it's on the other side. Right? So you notice that it is actually doing something there. If I put it on max x, right? You'll notice that it'll go to this side. See? It's still not quite right. But I'm beginning to work up some answers of how to do the final calculation on this, right? So that in effect, if I did want to change this cube, right? If I basically put it at 0, 0 or whatever, then I can actually start simulating the fact that it's actually stretching rather than. But as I said, for this you'd have to do a lot of calculations. For the procedural mesh, you're going to have to do a lot of calculations. So you're basically stuck either way, right? But you can see there that you can do certain things to kind of trick somebody into thinking that a vertex is being moved when it's actually not. But yeah, there'd be a little bit of sidetracking there, boys and girls. At this point, what I would have done would, if I was trying to solve your problem, I don't know the use case of what you're doing, right? So I don't know how many variables it's got, if you're just doing it on one axis or you want it to stretch on every axis or whatever, right? So it really depends on your use case, but either way you're going to end up having to do that, and then you're going to have to do a procedural mesh, right? Now if you're doing a procedural mesh, you've still got the same problem, because at the end of the day your textures are going to start getting warped and weird. And there's not an awful lot you can do about it without even more processing calculations. Right, a bit of a stretch there. Right, so I'm going to call it for this afternoon, guys. So if you've enjoyed the stream and our little discussion there, hit like and subscribe. I'll be back at 8 PM Central. I'll probably have finished this level by then. So check out this description for links to Discord, Patreon, and my previous game on Steam, and I hope to see you guys again. And thanks for watching. Bye bye for now.